Well, I seem to be developing a habit of responding to my friends on Discord with a video instead of typing, because I have much less time to type than I have to record, since I use my commute time, and because I find it more difficult to get through some of these ideas through typing, because I'm much more, and I question everything I write over and over again, whereas once I record something, it's out there and I can't take it back. So here we go. Somebody made a comment that there is a problem with induction, that deduction does not have a problem, with which deduction does not have a problem. I need to make sure I'm using these terms correctly. I always get them mixed up because they don't have any meaning to me. The terms are stand-ins for an abstraction, but for some reason I can't get those abstractions to connect with those terms. I believe induction here, they don't make any sense to me. Anyway, deduction, I believe, is when I see something repeated, and so I deduce that it is a regular phenomenon in the world. And induction is then I have a principle or axiom or otherwise some abstract idea, and I'm going to make deductions from that, or make inductions from that, I suppose. So this goes back a little bit to another video I made in which I speak of there being a doubling effect for practical concepts, because there is the practical thing itself, you know, be it your body doing something physical or the other person that you're interacting with, and then there is a twin of that, which is the practical concept that you use to represent whatever physical thing we're talking about, be it, you know, the action you use to perform some action, or the person you meet and you're talking to. There is a sense in which you can talk about non-practical. I'm not going to say, I almost said purely conceptual, but I'll just say non-practical or less practical concepts. Things like math and weight and instantly I know people will start arguing, well, math is practical because you can count apples, but that it's quite an abstraction, actually, because, you know, if you there's so many layers I have to get into to describe all these. All right, let me back up. I'll just say pure concepts then, just to make it easier, so I don't have to get into all the other abstractions. A pure concept, on the one hand, is merely a concept. It becomes twin if you then begin saying it is more than a concept, that it is something metaphysical. That is, I have a concept about the law of conservation, for instance. That concept is an abstraction of things you've seen in the world. In other words, your deductive process has resulted in an abstract principle. And that abstract principle, of course, then can be used as a part of your inductions. And people will claim, at least, that either they don't use or they don't trust deductions or inductions. And I find this improbable, because you don't go around measuring everything with repeated circumstances. Eventually, you form a principle, and then you go, see, I have a principle. Now I can do induction from this. Now, I didn't finish my thought about the doubling of concepts, of pure concepts. The doubling of pure concepts would be making a metaphysical claim, and I believe what they're trying to do is avoid metaphysical claims. I'm assuming that's what their intent is. But the thing is that they are still concepts, and they are still concepts that we have abstracted from reality, whether it is from repeated processes or not. And for the most part, math is such a concept. Whether we want to try to make the metaphysical claim that there is in some way, math is a part of the structure of the universe, well, it becomes something we can't measure. Okay, we can only repeatedly observe that our principle works. Now, how do I take this to the next level? I'm trying to get to, well, I guess I'm trying to show that induction and deduction are themselves united. It's impossible to function if you're not going to use them both. And in fact, unless you're trying to make some absolute metaphysical claim with your either your deductions, the things that you've deduced from repeat observations, or from the conclusions from your deductions that you formed into two concepts that you can then do inductions from. I think I said all that correctly. I'm not sure. Unless you're going to attempt something like that. Okay, what am I trying to say? Sorry. Unless you spend the rest of your life constantly doing deductive processes and never actually forming an abstract principle from the process that you can then use with other abstract principles to form conclusions, then you're using induction. You are. And you can certainly say, I don't trust induction, inductive processes. I said deduction again, didn't I? Ugh, I hate that. Those terms just don't seem to stick in my head. Anyway, if you're, I think this is why, because to me, they're just the forward and the backwards of the same process. So it's just all part of the same process. The only reason these processes have gotten divided and have become these two different processes we try to pit against each other is because we've separated them through trying to make metaphysical claims. If you're trying to make a metaphysical claim with either deduction or induction, you're making a claim about something that we cannot confirm. So it is something like an assumption or a commitment. That's why I got into this whole topic. Okay, let me see if I can remember that. My brain just blanked though. Commitments and assumptions. Okay. There's a simple question. How do you know that? This question appears to show the interconnection between induction and deduction. Because if you are questioning and deductive, something you've deduced from repeated observations, you say, how do you know that? And you kind of step back and say, okay, but how do you know deduction works? If you're saying, well, because it always works, that's circular, or you're appealing to an axiom that you've developed through a process of deduction. One way or another, you have this concept called deduction that you're using. You're pointing to that concept, and you're saying, this is the concept I'm using when I do this process. And yet that concept is a concept, which is what induction uses. Induction uses concepts. This goes back to this kind of twinning idea, that you can be using the practical process of deduction and still be using a concept that might be metaphysical if you wanted to make the claim, but of course, why would we want to? Why would we want to, how do I say this? I believe it is simpler just to say these are concepts we are using, they are tools, they function well, rather than to try to make an a metaphysical claim. Metaphysical claims are saying that there is a truth beyond the physical that we can observe. And I'm saying there's a problem with doing that. And I keep getting the weird looks. That guy looked at me weird, and there was a lady over there giving me a weird look because I'm talking to myself. Anyway, I just think that's funny. I think I'm done. I'm just going to be done. I have to go shopping now. Bye.